The chairman of Asda, Lord Rose, has suggested that shoplifting has become effectively decriminalised. And he has a point. Only 1 in 6 reports of shoplifting results in a conviction, which means hundreds of thousands of cases are going unpunished every year. And we must remember, even if you may have not personally witnessed the crime itself, supermarkets incorporate the costs incurred by shoplifting into their prices. So it has, in effect, become a silent tax for law-abiding consumers. We all have a stake in this problem being swiftly resolved. So are the police doing enough to tackle the problem? Well, with me now is Peter Bleksley, the former Metropolitan Police detective. Peter, thank you for joining me. Surely shoplifting is a gateway crime, and that once people feel they can get away with that, they'll think they can get away with more serious.
It's an insidious crime, and it's not being policed or prosecuted at any kind of level that it should be. But this dates back to about 2014, really, when we had the Antisocial Behaviour Crime and Policing Bill got passed. And what that did was it said that any shoplifting offence under £200 could only be tried in the lower courts, so in the magistrates' courts. Not long after that, some bright spark of a senior police officer thought, right, we can use this as an excuse now not to get involved. And they went public with that. And essentially, through the idiocy of making that statement, created a criminal charter. And now the chickens are coming home to roost.
So this is a decision made by the police because it's in the Magistrates' Court not to prosecute. We were hoping to hear from Katie Bourne, the Sussex Police and Crime Commissioner, who's the national lead for business and retail crime, but either she doesn't want to come on and defend the position of the police or has some other reason that she cried off at the last moment. So you're saying essentially it's that type of bureaucracy that people like her are in charge of that is...
Well, first of all, she's not the first Police and Crime Commissioner who doesn't want to involve themselves in a public debate with me. Yes, essentially... Well, so be it. Essentially, the police decriminalised it. They created a charter. Criminals are aware of these outpourings from police officers. And now, just a few years later, we have got to the completely unacceptable position where people are strolling into shops, stealing with impunity. There are certain major retailers that have non-intervention policies, which is a huge problem, and the police simply do not turn up, even when there's aggravating circumstances, like members of retail staff being assaulted, and hundreds of retail staff are being assaulted every day.
What on earth are the police doing? They go round with a van load to arrest some poor lady who was praying near an abortion clinic, and they can't stop people shoplifting. I mean, what's the point?
Well, in some regards, they've gone on some kind of woke, fluffy, liberal, ideological kind of campaign to police social media,
well, let's
which
bring
is
in
not
our
their
woke, fluffy
point.
liberal. Come on, Stephen.
Look, the real problem here is that between 2010 and 2020, we lost 20,000 police officers in England and Wales, and I don't care how good the police officers are, if you lose 20,000 police officers, and why Theresa May oversaw this as Home Secretary is absolute mystery to me. But we've now got a situation where, if you remember Bill Bratton, when he was the police commissioner in New York, he had this broken window theory. If you have a building with a broken window, then more windows will be broken. If you allow the minimum crime to actually, like, the street begging and things like that, it would go on to more. Last week, or the week before last, in Oxford Street, a whole group of kids turned up, attracted by social media, to go steaming into a shop there. And the police in London are now a riot squad. They're not the detective force that they were in your day.
It's the escalation of that shoplifting, which is what happens when there is police inactivity and there is no deterrent factor. No shoplifter imagines that he's going to turn the corner and run into a police officer, because the police do not patrol the streets these days.
But Calvin, this means we'll turn into San Francisco and the streets will become entirely normal.
So in my local Waitrose, what happens there is that they know this person is a shoplifter. The shoplifter comes in and starts putting the alcohol into their trolley, wheels it round, and then makes a dart, instead of going to pay for it, makes a dart for the exit. They're already there. They stop him. He says, "Oh, thank you." He then walks on, leaving the drink behind, and there's no arrest. So the crime hadn't actually come to its end. This is happening every day, every single... Tesco's are now putting body cameras on their staff. They're being assaulted.
They need protecting.
Are violent thugs who need to be arrested. And what I can't understand is why some Chief Constable of Surrey, round my way, or anyway, simply says, I tell you what, we are now going after them, and go back to after we all pay a precept for this, go back to the money people and say, we need a special. I tell you what, why don't we have a shoplifting police or a cycle police? Why don't we have some designated people doing this? I can do with the food price going down. Actually, I'd much prefer have these people banged up.
There are private
criminals.
security companies now that will patrol, detain and prosecute. They're one-stop shops for prosecuting shoplifters.
But what are the police are doing instead? Because the 20,000 police that went have now been replaced.
Yeah. Well, not
there are,
quite.
whatever it is, 130,000 police in this country. There must be some of them who could go to supermarkets and arrest people.
And that's a very, very apposite question because, of course, the majority mainstream of the UK have been abandoned by police in the last couple of decades. Because if you get your phone stolen, your bicycle stolen, your house broken into, your car stolen, or you're a shopkeeper and you have property stolen by way of shoplifting, you have not received a police investigation or service for the last 20 years or so. All you've got is a frankly worthless crime reference number. And that has been such a large driver in people losing trust in the police, as well as the big, awful, catastrophic, vile headline cases. But the police turning their back on the moderate mainstream and the crimes that affect them has also been a
Pete,
major
isn't it terrifying? If you go into Boots today and you wanted to buy a razor blade or a razor, they're actually fixed to the wall there. Now, the problem with this is crime fuels crime. People steal and then they sell that. They sell it down the pub. Then maybe they buy drugs with it. But the thing is, you actually created a widening pool of criminal underworld there, because it starts with nicking stuff from the supermarket and it ends up with gangs of people steaming into
OK,
Oxford
I'm going to
Street.
set you three an intellectual challenge.
Yeah.
What do you think Katie Bourne would say as a police and crime commissioner if she was coming on to defend the police? What is the argument to say? Is it resources? Is it that they're so busy with other things? Is it that this is in fact a trivial crime? Is it that people are so poor they have to steal? Can any of you come up with the defence?
Say we're dealing with terrorism. That's what they always do. They say there are things that you don't
like
know.
the chap who's just escaped from prison.
Well, yes, but they'll say there's things that you don't know that you can't understand, because they will always find an excuse. It's always a damn sight easier to find an excuse than to actually map a course of action.
One of the interesting things with these crime commissioners, I thought they were on our side. What has actually happened is that they have decided it's in their interest to stay in the job if they're on the side of the chief constable, so they get their direction in that way.
Rather well paid.
I imagine what she would say is, I think it's disgraceful, by the way, the fact that she didn't turn up and make this argument, whatever it is.
She's a public servant.
It's not about poor people stealing. That makes criminals of everybody, right? Will be a disgusting argument, and I hope she doesn't.
So what do you think she would say to
I think she would probably say, we are having our resources stretched, there's a lot of crime out there, and I'm afraid we have to prioritise.